you got to accept God's verdict. So God renders another verdict. For those who place their faith in Christ and believe that what Jesus did on the cross actually does pay the price and the debt we owe to God, God renders another verdict, and he says to those who do that, not guilty.
Wow. You talked about guilt as forensic, this declaration based upon evidence, and in the case of our standing before God, undisputable evidence that we have nothing to argue against it with, of recognizing that we have justly been judged by God. We need to take care of this forensic guilt first.
Yeah.
And our standing before God, and that is of most importance. And then we can look at and discuss and look at these other issues that come along with how we're thinking about things and how we're perceiving things. So what would you tell somebody first and foremost about dealing with that guilt that they stand before God?
We have to have a fixed standard. God doesn't lie, and God never makes a wrong judgment, as we said. So we if we want to ever be made right, if we want to, the verse comes to my mind is Matthew 11:28. All you who are heavy laden, come to me and I will give you rest. Well, heavy laden means to be bearing a heavy burden, and that encompasses a lot of things. And one of the things can be this feeling of shame that comes from true guilt. I mean, we are guilty, and that is the verdict that God has placed upon man. But the wonderful thing about that, as I referenced earlier, is it really is true that Jesus offered himself as a substitute, and God accepted that, even though Jesus himself made no sins, was not personally sinful. He was willing to become guilty, and God slammed the verdict down and said, okay, I'm going to place that guilt on you, so that anybody then who places their faith in Christ, then their guilt will go onto him and it will be released. And then the cleansing that comes through that, offered by, like this verse I just quoted, I will give you rest, then that burden gets lifted. Burdens are lifted at Calvary. Isn't there a song or a hymn or something like that? And that's what happens. So to be released from that is, you got to accept God's verdict. So God renders another verdict. For those who place their faith in Christ and believe that what Jesus did on the cross actually does pay the price and the debt we owe to God, God renders another verdict, and he says to those who do that, not guilty. So then we can quote the verse in 2 Corinthians 5:17, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things are passed away, and behold, all things have become new.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes to mind, that he who knew no sin became sin for us. Yep. So to deal with our guilt, we have to accept that Christ became guilty